one of the biggest drivers of privacy that I have observed in my lifetime is actually not the things you think about. It's not always the scandal or the headline or the thing in the newspaper that you can then go to your GC or executive team about, et cetera. One of the biggest gifts that you all have is actually that in this day and age, for most of you all, increasingly, because companies continue to use more and more and more data, many companies have cloud use, whether it's as a cloud company themselves or as somebody who uses cloud companies. Privacy is becoming just sort of table stakes. And I saw that at a pure SaaS company back in 2016, 17, which is at first, I really tried hard to kind of use the worldwide fines of GDPR and the requirements and all that stuff as my lever for how to build out a program. And guess what? That, again, it's a little different. We're in 2025. I'm dating myself a bit here, but I think that it's a bit different in 2025. But what helped significantly more than that then, and I believe for many organizations still now, is the fact that are certain people who will not buy from you if you don't have a privacy program. If you're a PE funded or private or a startup, there are certain people who won't acquire you if you don't have a privacy program. And there are certain, if you're an acquirer, like there are certain things that people won't buy from the company you acquired if you don't get them up to snuff. Those are immense drivers of privacy growth, and they're not sexy, but they're much more effective. And what I mean by that is what was very helpful for me at GoTo was when data protection agreements started coming up en masse in 2016 and 17. Because to me, looking at what's in those data protection agreements or data processing agreements, there was all these things that you had to go do. And to sign one of those, there's all this stuff that you have to go do. So you choose, and I did. I made a choice, which was, do I keep saying like, oh, we've got to go do GDPR just because of XYZ, because the regulator said so, because there's fines, et cetera? Or do I say that's all important, of course. However, on a more like day-to-day basis, talking to my buddy Tim right back in the day, like we're gonna start to lose business in mass if we can't sign these things.
Right. That's
And
the
I think
revenue.
that, go on, Tim.
That's the revenue point. Like,
That's the revenue point. I think
the
that's
revenue.
really important. And like I think that that's something that in being in conferences, talking to folks, like I think it's not always visible for some folks because maybe your responsibility to your organization for the audience is vendor management or et cetera. But all of this, for many organizations comes back to like revenue. And what I mean by that is even if it's not revenue in the literal sense of they won't sign an agreement, therefore we can't book the deal, but reputational harm impacts revenue, right? Like in many cases, yeah, a fine or fee and all the expenses associated, like Tim said, those are big, right? I don't want to negate those, but the impact to your reputation if you don't do things is what hurts your revenue again. So it always goes back to kind of that cash flow and revenue component of can you sustain the negative impact and downfall of not having a privacy program?